Gary, thanks for joining us today and welcome. Just wanted to talk a bit about CLTs today and your experience with community land trusts. So can we just get a little bit of an introduction about who you are?
Yes, my name is Gary Flomenhoft. I was a 10-year resident of the Burlington Community Land Trust in Burlington, Vermont, which is the largest community land trust in the US and most likely in the world. I lived for 5 years in a co-op, which was a 28-unit apartment building, and I had a 2-bedroom apartment as a townhouse, basically, as a member of the co-op. I didn't pay a mortgage. I paid a monthly fee to the co-op, and they had the mortgage, so they paid the mortgage directly. And then after living there for 5 or 6 years, I took the money that I had gained and I used it for the closing costs to buy a townhouse, which was very similar. It was a 2-bedroom townhouse, but it also had a garage and a laundry, so I kind of moved up in the world. And then I lived there for about 4 years, but then I was able to rent it while I was exploring living in Australia. So I had a place to go back to, but after 2 years you're required to sell it. You can't be an absentee landlord in a CLT, which makes sense. But they did allow me the grace period in order to adjust to my moving to a different country. So after 6 years I sold it, and that was 8 months ago. And I was able to take about $15,000 of earned equity out of it when I moved out due to paying down the mortgage. When I moved to Australia, I found out that there were no community land trusts in Australia, so I wanted to try to find a way to help to promote the concept here in Australia.
So as a resident, how would you describe what a CLT is from a resident's perspective?
So as a resident of the CLT, I'm a fairly typical person. I was a renter my whole life, and I was never able to really save up enough for a down payment. And because the CLT did not require a down payment, I was able to get into a CLT co-op property. And so I was able to gain some equity, and then from there I was able to pay the closing costs on a townhouse, which was also within the CLT. So I was able to move up to a better property, and also I was able to obtain a mortgage. So all of that would have been extremely difficult for me as someone on at the time, less than 80% of area median income. You hear about college faculty members, teachers being contingent employees. Not everybody has a great tenure track position with a huge salary. That a lot of us are contingent employees that are working part-time, picking up classes as we can, and we're not making a lot of money. So a CLT allowed me to become a homeowner of a 1,000 square feet or 100 square meter 2-bedroom townhouse, which I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
And what attracted you to live in a CLT?
Well, I think I already touched on the fact that I've been a renter my whole life, and it allowed me to become a homeowner and actually get some of that money back as I paid down the mortgage, which I never would have gotten back as a renter. I also like the idea that I'm able to pass the savings on to the next person, more or less paying it forward, so I feel like I benefited, but I'm also able to pass that on to someone else. First of all, you don't have to put a down payment so that you save on that. Second, you are only paying 80% of the market value in your mortgage, so you're saving huge on your mortgage costs. For me, I saved about $200 a month, which was about $19,000 over 6 years. When you sell it, you get back all the money you paid down on the principal of the mortgage. Of course, you don't get back the interest, although in America it's deductible, whereas here it isn't from your taxes. The other thing you get back is you get back any capital improvements, and most CLTs do allow the homeowner to keep some of the appreciation or capital gain of the property. Typically 25% is the amount. So when you add all that up, when I moved out of my two-bedroom townhouse, I took about $15,000 with me. As a renter, I would have gotten zero. So I was able to gain some wealth through ownership of a CLT property. It's a trade-off. You get benefits up front and you give up some benefits later. So you're still benefiting.
And did you find the concept of a CLT unusual?
Well, because I had a theoretical background in land reform and common property rights, it wasn't unusual to me, and I had also studied the concept quite a bit. So for me, it was pretty well understood.
And we don't have CLTs in Australia currently, so would you think that residents may find this concept of a community land trust unusual?
I think they might at first, because most of the affordable housing is either through government, through social housing, or community housing, through community housing providers. And all of those are rentals. They're just experimenting with some ownership schemes, but they don't seem to have the concept of a community nonprofit organization that retains a stock and provides ownership. I think the community housing provider is the closest, and they provide rentals. This is really the only type of non-governmental system that provides ownership. So I think that might be appealing to people, but it's not something they're used to. And the idea of using your house as an investment is something people here and in the U.S. are so accustomed to, that the house being their retirement or their investment is something everyone's gotten used to, the American dream or the Australian dream. And giving that up might be a challenge for people, but I think the benefits outweigh the disadvantages.
What did you like about living in a CLT?
I think I've touched on a lot of it. The main one for me was being a homeowner instead of a renter, and so not having that money all going down the drain and never coming back, and also feeling like I was contributing to solving a social problem, and also being able to pass that benefit on to someone else. Those were all the reasons why I liked it. Also, the appraiser said that in my townhouse, as a renter, you would have had to pay $1,450 a month just to rent it, whereas all of my costs in the land trust were $1,150. So it was actually cheaper to be a homeowner of the same property than to be a renter.
And just understanding that was a smaller town in the US, and it may not translate exactly to how markets are working in Australia, but that's fine. We'll be able to look at those figures on.
Yeah, it depends on a case-to-case basis. If the ownership is cheaper, we were just having a conversation where even in the market, in some cases, it's cheaper to own it than to rent it. So that situation can arise, and due to the reduction in the mortgage costs to the CLT owner, in my case at least, my ownership costs were less than the rent on the same unit would have been.